I decided to make this channel about reviewing action movies, I knew it was only a matter of time before a Michael Bay movie would show up. Figure, you know, having a cool angry rant on my thoughts on Michael Bay would be a great way to start getting a lot of views and floods of subscribers and stuff. I mean, because people love to hear Michael Bay rants. So finally one comes out! The first Michael Bay movie to come out since me starting these reviews. Go figure, it has to be the one that's actually kind of good. What's up everybody, Shark Caleb here for my first video of 2016. There were so many red flags with this movie. Okay, number one, it's a Michael Bay movie. That's a red flag. It's based on a true story. He doesn't exactly have a great track record with that, to be honest. And it comes out in January. January is pretty much the month where movies go to die. "13 Hours" is actually not that bad. So 13 Hours follows the story of 6 ex-military soldiers in Benghazi. You know what? This happened like a couple years ago. If you don't know what this movie is about, just, you know, Google it. You should already know what this movie is about, okay? Whether it was good or bad or whatever, this video was always going to be about Michael Bay, because this is the first video I've ever done about a Michael Bay movie. Go figure, it ends up being the one weird one that actually turns out to be kind of good. Now, I'm not as angry and hateful toward Michael Bay as a lot of people are. I certainly don't like his movies. I mean, there are certainly a lot of things about certain Bay-isms that absolutely drive me crazy. But see, one of the things is I've always had this theory, and I think 13 Hours is actually a pretty solid piece of evidence to support this. You see, Michael Bay kind of employs a style over substance approach to his movies. He has his own unique style of filmmaking, so that seems to always trump the actual substance. You know, things like acting, characters, an interesting story, stuff like that are always kind of shoved down to the wayside in order to make room for all the flashy explosions, slow motion, saturated colors, low angle shots, and things like that. But see, the weird thing is though, I'm not entirely against the idea of style over substance, so long as the substance that is there is solid. And to me, that's the problem with Michael Bay movies, is that it's not the fact that his style takes center stage over things like story and characters. That certainly is a problem. That's not my taste, but I can understand it so long as that substance is solid. And that's the problem with Michael Bay movies, is that very often, like with the Transformers movies, the tons of explosions and stuff aren't what bothers me. The saturated colors don't bother me. It's the fact that the characters of those movies are terrible. It's the fact that the story decides to focus on these terrible human characters instead of the cool robots that we actually like and want to follow. But 13 Hours is different because the story is very good. The performances by the actors are really good, especially John Krasinski. Major props to him for great performance in this. Even the script, like, for the most part, the dialogue in this movie is very, very accurate. If you spend enough time around military guys, you know that this movie is pretty accurate to how they talk. So the substance, it is a style over. The substance is pretty solid with this movie, which actually does. It works, and in that sense, it kind of makes a lot of the Bay-isms that are certainly here. Even they kind of work in a way. Yes, there's a lot of explosions, but it's war. You can't avoid that. You know, is there a lot of, you know, America patriotism? Yes. but it's about American soldiers, you know? Now, I'm not gonna say this is a perfect film or even a great film. There certainly are a lot of things in this movie that not that great. Some of the dialogue does get really hammy and corny. There's one particular line where the chief of the CIA at the end has this very forced, corny line where he says something like, "I'm proud to know Americans like you." Okay, that was really forced. Like, really forced, and it was really corny and took you out of what was otherwise a pretty solid moment of the movie, so there certainly are moments that are not that good. But what impresses me the most about this movie is who it's directed by. This is Michael Bay, and there are actually a lot of things that we attribute to Michael Bay as being issues that are either really subdued or just not there at all. Is there a lot of American flags? Michael Bay likes to do a lot of these grand shots of American flags, slow motion waving over triumphant music. Is there that in this movie? A little? I think maybe once or twice is an American flag like a big focal point of a shot. Are there low-angle shots of people? Yeah. But surprisingly not that much, and when it happens it doesn't feel like it's being shot like, yes, look at these characters. It's more of just like, just a shot. You know, and that's what I mean by the whole style over substance thing, that when the substance is solid, you don't really mind the style so much, and I think that's a good example of this. Are there low-angle shots of people? Yes. But the dialogue and the performances, everything is solid enough that it doesn't really bother me. Even the saturated colors, are they there? Yes, but I actually didn't care. But one of the biggest things, and the biggest thing that's always drove me nuts about Michael Bay's movies, is just how he almost gets kind of pervy and how sexualized he makes the leading lady of his movies. I mean, look, Megan Fox in Transformer, it's just ridiculous. It's very clearly just kind of pandering to a certain demographic. Like, the 13 to 16-year-olds are gonna go nuts if we have, like, booty shots and show Megan Fox's abs or something. But with 13 Hours, he doesn't do that. There is a gorgeous blonde character in this movie. She is a beautiful blonde woman in a Michael Bay movie, and not once is she, like, sexualized in any way. At all. She's not dressing in weird cut-off shirts. There's no booty shots or anything. She's just... There's none of that. Has Michael Bay learned his lesson? I mean, I know Transformers 4 was a disaster with critics. It was the lowest rated of the Transformers movies, and really low, and I think Michael Bay might have learned his lesson, because with 13 Hours, a lot of that stuff he kind of got rid of. This movie does focus a lot more on establishing good characters that you enjoy, and that's something I gotta say you don't see in Michael Bay movies anymore, because he tends to overlook that in place of his style. So this time it seems like he strengthened the substance, the foundation of the movie, and kind of trimmed a little bit of the style, and what he came out with was actually a fairly decent movie. I'm very surprised. From the Axe body spray of film directors, Michael Bay managed to make a respectful film based on a true story. Very intense and gritty, and for the most part very realistic in how the battles are executed. I will say that toward the end of the film, something happens and there is a lot of very gratuitous violence. The violence in this movie does get very cringy, but to me, because of the situation, because this is a war film, this is a war movie, so I can forgive gratuitous violence like this, because of what it's trying to do. It is trying to show, you know, because a lot of times with war movies, they tend to kind of really over-glorify war, make it almost like this grand, great thing. But what I like about war movies that get really violent and very gritty with the violence is because that kind of shows that, like, it's kind of taking away the romanticism of war and just showing it as like, hey, horrible things happen in war. Whether you agree with it or not, you at least need to understand what people go through. You know, what these soldiers go through. And I think 13 Hours does a fairly decent job at doing that. This movie really respects the soldiers in this situation. Now, I will say the biggest problem I have with this movie is while it does show a lot of respect toward the soldiers, the same can't really be said of the CIA agents that the soldiers were protecting. This was starting to drive me nuts. Luckily, it kind of subdues that a bit, but this movie really is kind of a little one-sided, showing these ex-military soldiers as the good guys, like they know what they're doing, whereas the CIA guys that the soldiers are protecting are idiots, they're ignorant, they don't know what they're doing or what they're talking about, but the soldiers, they do. And that kind of drove me nuts a bit. Not so much, mostly just because it doesn't really dwell very much on their side of things. It really does almost make them especially the chief, the CIA, the chief character. He is really shown as a guy who's just, he's arrogant, pompous, thinks he knows what he's doing, when in reality he knows nothing. But, you know, what they don't show is a lot of you know, it doesn't at least even try to at least just kind of show his way of thinking. It just is like, he is mean, he's bad, because he's holding them back, and he doesn't know what he's talking about. He's dumb. You should not root for him. He's just the idiot that the real hero's gotta defend. Which that I wasn't all that wild about. I think they could have dealt with the treatment of the CIA agents in this situation a little bit better and with a little more respect than it does. So, like I said, this is not a perfect film. It's not even a great film. I'd say it's okay. It's okay. But, on the other hand, okay is still a whole lot better than most Michael Bay movies would get. I would probably say, it may be a little too early to judge, but I would say this is probably the best movie Michael Bay has done. Yes, movies like The Rock were really, really fun, but I think 13 Hours really shows that Michael Bay might actually be maturing. He might have learned his lesson. Hopefully 13 Hours is a sign that Michael Bay is going to start doing more stuff like this, actually having characters that you care about, you know, being respectful toward these real life events and things. So we'll see. We'll see if this was just a fluke, or if this is a sign that Michael Bay has learned his lesson and he's gonna start doing some more decent, okay stuff. So in the end, what do I rate 13 Hours? I would say 13 Hours, The Secret Soldiers of Benghazi, gets my review score of, it's okay. So 13 Hours, have you seen it? Do you want to see it? Curious to know your thoughts on it, so comment below, like, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff, pass this around and all that, and anyway, I am Shark Caleb, and I will see you next time. Stay frosty.